Hello everyone, welcome to my Mistweaver Season 2 11.1 Mistweaver Guide. Now this guide is primarily made for people who have never even touched the spec before. I'm going to walk you through every step explaining each ability and how it functions with other abilities. And I'm not going to go over all the complexity things that don't really matter, just simply how the talents work, how to play the spec, how all the abilities work, and then share some WeakAuras at the end of the video. Now without further introduction, let's get started with the talents. In 11.1, I will be playing the Fistweaver build. However, I do understand that a lot of new players get scared when it comes to healing by doing damage, but I can promise you after watching this video, it's not as stressful and it's not as scary as it looks. Now, these are the talents that I will be playing moving forward. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to make this video overcomplicated. This is strictly for new players, so if you do want a more complex guide, I'm sure there's someone else that will be able to get that for you. Pretty much, there's a few things that you could change around throughout this tree. If you are worried about button blow, in my opinion, you can honestly play Chi Wave. That way it does take this button off of your bars because it's not 100% necessary. It just helps you reset one of your abilities. So if you want to play Chi Wave to reduce button blow, go for it. Now regarding hero talents, if you are new, Conduit of Celestials is probably going to be better because it's just a quick cooldown with this ability right here. But if you do want to play the best build, then you should go with Master of Harmony because it does do more damage and it does do more healing overall. I will provide my talents down in the description below. Alright, now these 4 abilities are going to be your key healing abilities, and I'm going to make this as simple as possible without dragging it out for too long. Now this first ability is called Renewing Mist. This is basically a heal over time effect that you want to constantly keep on cooldown on your party. It's for 20 seconds, however we are spec'd into a talent, which makes it to where for the first 8 seconds of casting on target, you do 50% more healing. So you just want to keep this on cooldown as much as possible, but don't stress too much about it if you are new. Now the next ability is Vivify. Super simple. It's just a casted ability and just heals. It's as simple as that. However, for each target that has Renewing Mist on it, whenever you Vivify a target, it'll heal all targets with Renewing Mist on it, which is why you want to keep this on cooldown, because this basically turns it from a single target heal all the way to an AoE heal. And we are spec'd into this talent node right here on our class tree, which allows us every 10 seconds to have an instant cast Vivify. So just keep that in mind, and if you want to check it with WeakAuras, feel free to. Now Enveloping Mist is a 1.5 second cast, so it is a bit of a longer cast, but I'll explain how to make it shorter in a minute. But basically, applying it to a target just puts another heal over time effect on them, but allows them to receive 40% increased healing, which is massive if someone's taking a lot of damage. To keep things super simple, Soothing Mist is not what's going to be doing a lot of your healing. It's going to be allowing you to instant cast Enveloping Mist and Vivify, which means that Vivify will basically always have an instant cast, same with Enveloping Mist. That way you can spam dump heals onto a single target. Now, something to keep in mind is you do not want to primarily rely on Soothing Mist to be consistently healing your targets, because you want to make sure that you are able to do the DPS rotation and you're not just tunneling healing through this, because you might miss out on keeping out your Renewing Mist dots on everybody. Let's say the tank is taking a lot of damage and they need instant heals. You'll Soothing Mist, you'll Enveloping Mist, and then you'll spam Vivify, which should hopefully keep them up for as long as possible. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the more targets in your party with Renewing Mists will allow your Vivify to AoE heal them. Alright, now onto our damage abilities. So now that you should understand how the healing rotation works, which is pretty simple, this is where things might get a little complicated, but don't worry because I can promise you it's not that hard once you get used to it. Our first ability is Rising Sun Kick, which does the most single target damage. Now in our Fistweaving build, we want to keep this on cooldown. Now the reason why we want to keep this on cooldown is because Rising Sun Kick applies Renewing Mist to a target. So you essentially have 3 charges of Renewing Mist, if that makes sense. So you want to keep Renewing Mist on cooldown if possible. Don't stress about it too much if people need direct healing, but whenever everyone's topped off and doesn't need any healing, just make sure this is always kept on cooldown to start off with. And then Rising Kick, you always want to make sure this is on cooldown. Reason being is because also it'll do a bunch of AoE healing with targets who have Renewing Mist, similar to how Vivify does the same thing. Now the next ability we have is Tiger Palm, and the reason why you want to use this ability is not because of the damage, because it'll give you stacks of Teaching of the Monastery. Now what Teachings of the Monastery is Tiger Palm causes your next Blackout Kick to strike an additional time, stacking up to 4. Now here's the real part on why it matters. Blackout Kick has a 20% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Rising Sun Kick. So basically, what this means is for every Teachings of the Monastery stack that you have, Blackout Kick has a 20% increased chance to reset Rising Sun Kick. Now that sounds really confusing, but bear with me. All you need to know is you're going to Rising Sun Kick, 2 Tiger Palms, because you will get 4 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery, Blackout Kick, and then this has an 80% chance to reset Rising Sun Kick. Now your next ability, which is your most important one for your DPS rotation, is going to be Jade Fire Stomp. Now, this ability can get confusing if you don't fully understand what it does. Pretty much what happens is you press this ability and it'll put down this like Jade Serpent stuff in front of you. Now what standing in this allows Tiger Palm to do is it allows it to gain 2 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery every time you use it. So pretty much the rotation is Rising Sun Kick, 2 Tiger Palm, then Blackout Kick. And by standing in this, it'll allow your Blackout Kick to cleave, which 1 does more damage, and 2 could increase your proc rate of resetting Rising Sun Kick, which is huge because this allows you to do more healing. This is the bread and butter of your DPS rotation, which will allow you to do your Fistweaving Rotation efficiently while being able to keep all your Renewing Mist dots out. Now our next ability is Spinning Crane Kick. However, with our build that we're currently playing, we won't even really be using it. So honestly, feel free to take it off your bars to reduce button bloat. Feel free to refer back to this part of the video because it can get confusing. But once you get in the habit of doing it, it's not difficult, I can promise you. So first, going into a pack, you'll always Jade Fire Stomp. That way you'll be able to get the buff that buffs these abilities. So you'll Jade Fire Stomp. This is a weak aura right above this Blackout Kick. So you will Rising Sun Kick to put it on cooldown. You will do 2 Tiger Palms. This way you have 4 stacks of Teach You the Monastery. Then you'll Blackout Kick. Now it won't always reset the cooldown of Rising Kick, but most times it will. So Rising Sun Kick, 2 Tiger Palms. Blackout Kick. Okay, you'll do it again. 2 Tiger Palms. Blackout Kick. It reset the cooldown, so Rising Sun Kick. 2 Tiger Palms. Blackout Kick. And then you follow through with Rising Sun Kick. Now, what'll happen with this, with Jade Fire Stomp, is you'll want to make sure you have these 2 buffs, Jade Fire Teachings and Awaken Jade Fire. You'll have the Awaken Jade Fire buff whenever you are standing inside of this. Whenever you move away, you'll have 8 seconds left of it. So you can move out of it, but make sure that you're back in it within 8 seconds. Now, this ability lasts for 30 seconds, but by doing your DPS rotation, it'll reset the cooldown pretty quickly. So it's super simple. As you're doing your rotation, this cooldown will reset. So it's on a 15-second cooldown, but just by doing it, it'll be up in no time. So you don't really have to stress about it. Now, if you are spec'd into Chi Burst, by using it, apparently it has a more likelihood to reset the cooldown of Jade Fire Stomp. However, if you're wanting to reduce button bloat, feel free to run Chi Wave instead of Chi Burst. Now, the next buff that you're wanting to track is Jade Fire Teachings. Once again, super simple. All you need to know is it allows you to do more healing through DPSing. Now, in order to get Jade Fire Teachings, you either press Jade Fire Stomp or you press Thunder Focus T. And I'll explain that in a minute. However, if you're new to the spec, just simply make sure that you constantly have the buff from Jade Fire Stomp. Now, something that a lot of new Mistweavers do is they'll just spam Jade Fire Stomp as soon as it gets off a cooldown. However, you don't necessarily have to. What I would recommend is tracking Jade Fire Teachings and Awaken Jade Fire. And pretty much what you want to do is about 4 seconds before this buff goes away, I'll press it again. Or if I know I'm about to move, I'll just press it then. The reason being is because this itself does not do a ton of damage and healing, so just spamming it won't really do you any good. Now that should hopefully explain to you the basic healing rotation and the basic DPS rotation. Now keep in mind, if you do have any questions about how any of these abilities work or how they synergize, feel free to let me know in the comments below and I will definitely answer as fast as possible. Now the next thing that we're going to go over are our big healing cooldowns. Now the first cooldown is going to be Life Cocoon. All you do is you apply Life Cocoon to someone for 12 seconds and absorbs 7 million damage and increases your healing by them by 50%. Now it also does apply Enveloping Mist and Renewing Mist to the target. Now this is a super simple ability that doesn't really need much explanation. Now here's Shaylin's Gift. Once again, this is not an advanced guide. This is just a super simple guide for beginners, so I'm not going to go over all the details. What you need to know is every 4 seconds in combat, it will generate a charge, and basically every 40 seconds, it'll have 10 stacks. That is the max, and it does a ton of AoE healing to your group. So in combat, it'll look something like this. If let's say you're doing your rotation, every 4 seconds, it will generate a charge. If it's at least 6 charges, it'll do a lot of healing. However, it'll obviously do more the longer you wait. So you'll want to save this for whenever big damage is coming out and you need to AoE heal your group. Super simple, you press it and it is a cast, but it is a pretty quick cast and then it'll just heal. Now, Revival, I actually just pressed the ability, but once again, this is your biggest AoE heal, group heal, dispel, everything. This ability, you want to make sure you use it very strategically. It is a 3-minute cooldown, which is our longest cooldown on any of our abilities, but pretty much what it does is it'll AoE heal everybody for 1.6 million health, which is a lot of health for an AoE situation, and it will dispel basically everything that needs to be dispelled on a fight. Let's say it's a Mythic plus Affix, let's say it is just a simple Dispel that everybody has, a Poison, no matter what it is, this is your most important healing ability. Make sure you use it wisely. It is a instant cast, so there, you don't even need to worry about casting it or anything. Just make sure you use it wisely, and it's a big boy heal. Now, invoke Chi-Ji the Red Crane. This is the ability that has some complexity to it, but basically what you need to know is by pressing this ability, it will allow your DPS rotation to do more healing. And this will give all of your party members an absorb shield. Now in our build, whenever you press this, what you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that after this is pressed, you use your Teachings of the Monastery on Blackout Kick, which will then allow your Enveloping Mist. Will basically put a heal over time on everybody that allows you to do 10% more healing to everybody. This ability is on a minute cooldown, so you can use it pretty frequently, and it lasts for 12 seconds, and it does a lot of healing. But super simple, without getting into the specifics, by clicking this ability, it allows your Fistweaving to do so much more healing. So you press it, cool, you'll do your normal DPS rotation, and it just heals for more. Now moving on to our final healing cooldown, which might take the most tracking to figure out, is Thunder Focus T. Now, Thunder Focus T empowers your next ability. Just to save you stress, don't even worry about reading the tooltip. All you need to know is that by using this ability, because of the way that our talents work, it allows your Crackling Jade Lightning to do an insane amount of healing and an insane amount of damage. After using Thunder Focus T, you will then cast Crackling Jade Lightning, and then you will cast Rising Sun Kick. Now, the reason why I say cast Rising Sun Kick, because basically it'll make the cooldown 2 seconds. So on average, whenever I do use Rising Sun Kick, it's a 9-second cooldown. However, after casting Thunder Focus T, it'll make this a 2-second cooldown. So I click it, done. Look at that. I just have 2 casts of Rising Sun Kick. So basically, that's what you'll want to use from the buff. Now, after pressing this, it will make Crackling Jade Lightning proc. Now, by you doing it, it'll make it do a ton of damage and a ton of healing. Now, in 11.1, they did make this a lot better in single target, so you'll actually be able to use this on single target boss fights. Whereas beforehand, you would want to use it in pretty much only AoE for the massive healing, or just single target damage. Now, this bar in the bottom left is our Vitality bar. Now, this comes from our hero talent, Master of Harmony. Now, if you're playing Conduit of the Celestials, you won't have to worry about this. It only matters if you're playing Master of Harmony. Your Mistweaving and Fistweaving heals will charge up this bar. Now, don't stress about getting this bar up to the max before you use this, because if your group needs healing, you need to make sure that you heal them as fast as possible. However, if everybody's fine, then you'll wait till this gets to the max, and then it does ton of single target and AoE healing. Because by default, Crackling Jade Lightning is only a single target ability. However, whenever it is empowered, it'll transform this into AoE healing. As you can see, look at all of that lightning. It does an insane amount of healing and an insane amount of damage. And also after pressing Thunder Focus T, it'll empower you for a certain amount of time to just allow you to do more healing in general. Now, to sum up your cooldowns, this ability is your best single target heal. This is a consistent AoE cooldown heal that you can use. This is big boy defensive. Chi-Ji is something that you can use very often and consistently. Now, the one thing that I did forget to mention about Chi-Ji is it does prevent you from movement and parrying effects. So let's say you're rooted or something similar to that effect, it'll get you out of those roots. So something to keep in mind is if you are wanting to be rooted in a specific situation, do not use Chi-Ji because it will remove you from all roots. This is something that took me a while to figure out and bricked a lot of my keys. Now, the next thing we're going to go over are our defensives. Super simple, 3 abilities. Expel Harm is on a 15-second cooldown that just does a lot of healing to yourself. So if you don't want to waste a certain cooldown on yourself, just use it. Super simple. Fortifying Brew is a 1.5 minute cooldown with the talents that we are spec'd into, and it turns your skin into stone for 15 seconds, increasing your current and maximum health by 20%, also reducing all damage you take by 20%. So if you know a lot of damage is coming out and you want to make it easier on yourself, just use Fortifying Brew as your big defensive. Now, your next ability is Diffuse Magic. This reduces all magic damage you take by 60% for 6 seconds, and it also works similarly to a Spell Reflect as a warrior. It transfers all currently active harmful magical effects on you back to their original caster if possible. Now, personally, if you are new to the spec, get in the habit of using your defensives, because a lot of new healers think that they can just use their normal healing rotation to heal themselves, which yes, you can and you will have to sometimes, but it isn't a good habit to get used to using your defensives. That way it's easier so you can focus on everyone else's healing. Now, as a Mistweaver, you have a decent amount of utility. Now, your detox is going to be your dispel ability. Super simple, just use it whenever someone is taking a lot of damage, and they do have a dispellable effect on them. Spear hand strike is going to be your interrupt. We are lucky as a healer to have an interrupt that we can use consistently on a 15-second cooldown, so it's best to use it as much as possible to really help out your group. That way DPS can focus on DPSing. We have paralysis, which incapacitates the target for 1 minute. It's on a 30-second cooldown. Tiger sweep is an AoE stun. We have ring of peace, which by placing it on the ground keeps everybody outside of this unless they are boss specific mobs. Touch of death is a 3-minute DPS cooldown, which you don't have to stress about using too much. Using this efficiently will probably save you some time. You have transcendence, super simple. You'll press it, it'll leave a spirit of yourself behind. You can run up to 40 yards away, and by pressing this ability, we'll swap locations. Now, if you do not place your transcendence back in the same place, then the next time I use transfer, it'll transfer me to this spirit location, which I just transferred from. Transcendence is really good in Mythic Plus whenever you have to LOS or there's a knockback and you need to quickly get back to your location. Now, the reason why I included roll on our utility list is because you get a double jump proc from it. Because you have your standard roll. However, after this, whenever you double jump, it'll dash you forward. A lot of monks surprisingly still don't understand this. And it comes from our talent node, Lighter Than Air, in our class tree. Basically, after you press roll, you can double jump and it'll launch you forward. Now, if you're wanting to be able to fly across the map, basically in order to do that, you will jump, press roll, and then you will launch yourself forward. And it works like this. 1, 2, 3. So you can fly across the map and it's really fun to do. Now, something to keep in mind, which is also a ability that I forgot to include in the utility, is Tiger's Lust. By using this ability, it'll increase the target's movement speed by 70% for 6 seconds, and will also remove them from roots and snares. So if somebody's standing in something that's probably going to get them killed and they are rooted, make sure you use this ability on them, that way they can live. However, when using Tiger's Lust, if you're wanting to do the roll thing that I just explained, a lot of times you'll get that random invisible wall and it won't allow you to do that. So you want to make sure if you're wanting to fly through the air by using roll, that you use it whenever you have no movement increasing effects. Now, regarding WeakAuras, I design a majority of my WeakAuras. Some things I import from other people, but for the most part, I do most of them myself, because I try to keep my UI as simple as possible without overbearing it with a bunch of things that I don't really need to track. So I only track what I genuinely feel that I need to track. Now, I will leave a link to my WeakAuras in the description below. However, what I will say is pretty much the main things that you should track as a Mistweaver is you should track your Jadefire teachings, you should track your teachings of the monastery, and then you should also check your vitality, which is through this bar right here. Because once this gets filled up, that's when you'll want to use your Thunder Focus T with your Crackling Jade Lightning to do a bunch of DPS and healing. Now, once again, Jadefire Teachings, Awakened Jadefire, Vitality Tracker, and Teachings of the Monastery are, in my opinion, the top 4 WeakAuras that you should be keeping track of. Because overall, it'll make the spec 10 times easier to play if you are keeping track of these things. Now, in 11.1, the stats that you're primarily going to want to be targeting are Haste and Crit. Now, haste is your #1 stat that you want as much of as possible, because with the way that our rotation works, we don't have to worry about mana as much as other healers do because of Mana Tea. Now, with Mana Tea in combat, it'll generate stacks, and by pressing it, it'll give you an insane amount of mana back. They did nerf it a little bit in 11.1, but not enough to where we have to worry about mana. So super simple, don't let this get above 20 stacks, and just use it every now and then whenever you need mana. Now, you want to prioritize having as much haste as possible, then you want to prioritize to getting crit, and then mastery, and then your least thing that you need to worry about is verse. However, versatility still is not bad, so don't stress too much about your stats. The main thing that you need to be worried about is your item level, because the higher item level means the higher healing you do, the more damage you do, and the better you can survive. Well, other than that, this does conclude my 11.1 Mistweaver guide. If you do have any questions on how anything works about the spec, how any of the abilities synergize with each other, or any more of the specifics of anything I did not disclose in the video, feel free to ask in the comments below, and I'll respond to them as soon as possible. And I hope that this video was as helpful as possible, and if you did find it helpful, feel free to subscribe below, and feel free to drop your feedback. I appreciate you for being here, and I'll see you guys in the Undermine.